All I want to know is, are we getting a season 4?
Yeah!
Alrighty then. What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about Season 3 in its entirety of Young Justice, all 26 episodes since the last 3 episodes dropped this morning. Watched them, we're going to talk about it. Now, I am going to dive a bit deeper than I normally do. It's not going to be a non-spoiler review, although I will leave the really exciting things for you guys if you haven't watched this season. But there are a few plot points I want to get into, but I need your comments down below. Do you like this show? Have you seen this season yet? If you haven't, are you looking forward to it? And let's talk about Young Justice. So in episode 24, the Outsiders make one last attempt to save the galaxy. In episode 25, Artemis and Connor journey back to their pasts, and in the season finale, things come full circle. Alright, so we were all really excited to see Young Justice come back to the small screen on this DC Universe streaming platform, and if you're wondering, where is this available? Where can I watch it? As of right now, it is on that platform, so if you have that streaming app, go and watch every episode. If you don't have it, it will probably be available at some point in the future, whether that's available to buy online, or it'll probably get a Blu-ray set. Regardless, I have watched the season in its entirety. It took a long break because it premiered at the beginning of the year, so I did kind of have to catch myself back up when that break was over with and we started getting more episodes. And I love how they're dropping 3 every single week. They're not saying, we're going to drop a few here and a few there and then we're going to wait a couple of weeks. No, when they returned from the break, they kept the trend that they were on at the beginning of the season, releasing multiple episodes at one time. And this season went in a very different direction than I anticipated, because we saw what happened at the end of season 2. And by the way, just in case you're curious, I am in love with this show. The entire concept, getting to see not just a few of our heroes interact, but all of the Justice League, all of the young heroes. And then this season, we get introduced to an entirely kind of new group of heroes forming what we later on figure out is the Outsiders. And I was wondering, what is the Outsiders, right? And you think it's going to be the aliens that come in, or these new characters that you get introduced to at the beginning, and it's kind of that, but the team that we get to see in the second half of the season, that team is called the Outsiders, and they really are kind of formed by Beast Boy. Beast Boy played a huge role in this season, and we kind of saw it in the first half of the season, but then in the second half, he is put at the forefront, and his goal is to create this team to have them rise on social media, rise in popularity, and do things not by the book, because as we know, what the rest of the team is doing, whether it is a Nightwing or a Miss Martian, all of those characters, they're going on these stealth missions, as they have for so long, but they're keeping everything underground. And then we see at the end of the season, maybe even some of our Outsiders were not filled in on what was going on with that portion of the team. But the Outsiders, they want to do everything in front of the camera, which makes sense because they're led by Beast Boy, who is an actor in this show, and I really like the direction that they took with Beast Boy. He was probably the biggest surprise for me as a character, and the fact that they have a voice actor that sounds extremely similar to the voice actor that plays Beast Boy in the other series, the Teen Titans, but I really like the route that they went with him, because he was very conflicted. He's much more serious than we're used to from the character of Beast Boy. He's normally really funny, really crazy, zany, wacky sense of humor. Not the same Beast Boy we know, but I'm okay with that since this is a completely different show. But he assembles this team of a Wonder Girl, a Static Shock, and multiple characters that, maybe we're not as familiar with as we were the other team. And the other team, while they're kind of put on the back burner, and that's one thing I was a bit bummed out about this season is, I wanted more Nightwing. I wanted more Superboy. I wanted more of the characters that we knew from the other seasons. And I get it. They're getting older. They're doing their own thing now. And we wanted to focus on these new characters such as a Markov. And we'll get into that storyline here in just a bit, because that really is kind of the through line, everything that's happening with those new characters starting out, and then where we end up is extremely, extremely interesting. But what our teams, not just the Young Justice team, but pretty much everyone is dealing with this season, is the idea of metahuman trafficking. And we get thrown into this situation at the beginning of the season when we see that these kids who are given these powers are being secretly traded, and the idea is to go in and save these. And then we see later on in the season they are put in a school trying to realize, maybe overcome some situations in their personal life, but realize what their powers are, how they can control them. feels like an X-Men situation, but it's not a ripoff because it really is its own thing. And I like that concept. I like the idea of going in and saving these individuals who just don't know what to do with their powers, don't know what to do with themselves. But then you have this other thing going on in space, and of course the Justice League, they're off doing their own thing, which we don't focus on because the show is not the Justice League, the show is Young Justice. But we have this intergalactic situation, and our boy is back, Darkseid, who doesn't pop up as much as you think because the real villain of the end, or I'd say the second half of this season when you're talking about the intergalactic side of things, is Granny Goodness. And Granny Goodness kind of split into two different personalities, and we see those kind of join together later on in the series, but you have one version who is on Earth and kind of controlling all of these little things and really controlling Garfield, the character of Beast Boy, and that's the entire idea of The Outsiders, is to create this team being funded by her because she pays these actors to go after Granny Goodness. I'm like, all right, that's cool. I'm on board with that. But then you have the other side of her who is underneath Darkseid. And the fact that certain characters didn't know that Gretchen Good was Granny Goodness, I'm like, all right. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me that she was, but okay, I can get behind that. And I can get behind a few issues, some nitpicks that I had in this season. And I probably had them with other seasons, but when these other seasons were coming out in Young Justice, I was a lot younger, so I didn't critique the dialogue as heavily as I would now and notice the cheesiness of what this show brings, because trust me, this show is very cheesy at times. And this is not me trying to get underneath anyone's skin who loves this series, because I'm one of those. I love Young Justice. I love everything it stands for. It is one of my favorite animated superhero shows of all time, and I'm so happy we're getting another season. But I did notice some inconsistencies with the dialogue and certain characters that just spill out exposition. The thing that I hated the most about watching what these characters would do is when someone would walk away, or they're the only character on screen and no one can hear them, and they'll just spout out a line of dialogue basically telling the audience what was about to happen, what they were thinking, or something that we already know. And that happened over and over again. And I get it, it's probably an animated series trope. We probably got that with Justice League Unlimited, Teen Titans. But once again, I was younger at that point, so I was prime to enjoy something and overlook the things that I wouldn't overlook at this point in my life, being someone who wants to be a film critic. So of course I'm going to pay attention to dialogue that just doesn't work. That's some cheesy things and some extremely annoying characters. And I don't mean annoying as in I hated it every time they were on screen. No, I just mean things that they would say back to the exposition point to feed exposition to the audience, but they would just come in and drop a line. I'm like, that's not funny. Or they would use sound effects, but they would use them over and over. And I don't like when big budgeted movies do this, and they do it. Movies that I love do it. Everyone does this, but they'll use a sound effect, and then they'll use the same sound effect for a different situation. And you can see, you can tell, you can hear all of those things. It comes across as a bit lazy. But once again, these are all like minor nitpicks, because at this point, Season 3 of Young Justice, I've accepted what it is. It knows exactly who it's trying to appeal to. It's trying to appeal to kids, but it's also trying to appeal to fans of Season 1 and 2. And while I don't know if I like Season 3 as much as 1 and 2, because 1 and 2 we focused on the team members and the team that I absolutely loved. This team is a very different team. We're dealing with some new players here. We have Brion Markov. We have the character of Halo, who we're heavily focused on at the beginning of the series because this is a character that they basically bring back from the dead. And we have a certain doctor who just comes in and consistently messes things up, and she's playing the game of, oh, I'm the good guy, but she's not really a good guy. And we can tell that she's not a good character from the start, but they try to swerve us with the series, and then you realize, oh, she is actually doing what we expected her to do. But all of that, while I didn't expect any of this, I expected this season to kind of carry on with the team that we knew from Seasons 1 and 2. This was a bit of a swerve, but I'm okay with it. It took me a bit to get on board. I'm not going to lie to you. The first few episodes, I'm like, this is interesting. This is going in a very political direction because of the Markovian people. The idea that maybe he should be leading these people, but the fact that he is a superhuman won't allow him to do so, and then he's competing against his brother, and there are so many little nods and ideas in here that they're trying to clearly get a point across, and I'm okay with that if you don't push it a bit too hard, which there are times, especially towards the end of the show, when we go back to that situation, because the middle portion of Young Justice Season 3 starts to throw a few things in here that kind of gets away from what we start out with in Season 3 with the character of Halo and Brion Markov and all of these new team members, which I didn't mind because their characters and their situations were interesting, but we start focusing a bit more on the outsiders, which is what the season is called, so of course we're going to focus on that. And we bring in characters like a Static Shock, a Beast Boy, and then we start to take a look at what actually happened with the kids who were involved with the Metahuman trafficking situation. There were a few characters that maybe we focused on a bit too much that didn't really come around and play an important part in the story. There's a character that gets turned into a superhuman. She can breathe underwater, and her storyline kind of goes nowhere, and I feel that way with other characters too. It's like, why did we spend so much time here when maybe we could have either shortened the season? It felt like they had to fill time at points, and I understand that, but when we were focused on the stories that were extremely interesting to me, such as The Outsiders and Granny Goodness, and even the political things with Lex Luthor, who actually played an integral role in this season. Now, there's a line or two that he dropped in the main last episode. I'm like, all right, they're clearly trying to throw shade at someone who exists in real life, and when shows do that, regardless of how I feel politically, whether I laughed at that or got upset at that, I'm like, come on, man, that's just a little too on the nose for me, and I don't like when shows do that. There are a few themes and ideas in here, and I'm just like, they're trying to appeal to people and appease everyone who's watching, whether it's a line of dialogue or just something said clearly to make a group of people mad. I'm just like, a show like Young Justice, I mean, you're gonna get mostly kids watching I'm watching it, and I'm loving it. I'm enjoying every second of it, but you're going to get kids watching this, and I don't know if that's necessary, and shows are doing that more and more nowadays. If it doesn't affect you, then it doesn't affect you, but it's just something I'm going to throw in there. But let's get to the final 3 episodes, and these episodes, they went down a path that, I knew it would wrap up the season and wrap up a lot of these storylines, whether it is a Deathstroke coming in here and you have Tara. I mean, that's how I've always pronounced it, so I'm going to continue to say it that way. I don't think she was built up the way that they intended on having her built up throughout the show to get to this point and to this climactic problem we're facing in one of these last few episodes with the character of Deathstroke. Now, they do focus on it at the beginning, but that's the problem with so many episodes. You kind of lose focus, and then you release the second half so much later in the year, and you're like trying to remember exactly what happened in the first half, and it's not a detriment to the story, it's just a detriment to how the DC streaming app decided to release these episodes. But that storyline was interesting. I like how Deathstroke played a role, and then of course you have Batman and Nightwing coming back. Nightwing, once again, not playing a major role in this season, but he played enough of a role that I was kind of happy with. Jesse McCartney does a great job as Nightwing. I've always really enjoyed his presence as a voice actor in the show. And then you have these other storylines kind of coming to a head in the third to the last episode. This is when the battle goes down, and you get everything going on with Granny Goodness. Then in the next episode, kind of focuses on Artemis and her dealing with the loss of Wally, a loss that really affected me when it happened in the show, and that's something that I still think about. Glad they came back around to it, brought back that character just, to do what they did in that episode. I really, really loved that. It was kind of beautiful, honestly. And then what happens with Markov in the last episode, and everything that goes down, unexpected. Didn't think they'd go down that route, but I really enjoyed it. It was climactic, it was interesting, and it all came to a head as we kind of anticipated during the first episode. So I really liked how all of these storylines came back around in the final 3 episodes. We got some emotional moments, we got some sentimental moments, we got some shocking moments. We have death in the final 3 episodes. Whether it's a character we like or not, we still have death. So it's a show that deals with adult themes in a way that I think is interesting. There are definitely aspects and elements for kids in there. Sometimes they override on the adult things, and you're sitting there watching it 24 years old. I'm like, yeah, all right, that's clearly for kids. But then in the next episode, you're dealing with loss and death and things that happen in real life that you just can't wrap your head around, and that's when Young Justice really, really works for me. And of course, the characters. I love the characters, and I love what they did with Black Lightning this season, as well as Cyborg. This was kind of a origin story for Cyborg. Didn't expect it to go that route, but it did, and when they focused on that character, it was really cool. So all in all, really enjoyed this season. Maybe not as strong as the other two seasons, but I mean, the first two seasons are fantastic. I still think this was a great season of television. I'm going to go 78% for Young Justice Season 3. Thoroughly enjoyed myself, thoroughly enjoyed my time. So glad we're getting a Season 4. And I want to know, what did you guys think? Were you as impressed as I was, or were you more impressed? Would you go 9 out of 10 for your score? I want to know that down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hey, if you want more DC videos, let me know what's a DC video you'd like to see from me. Currently working on a Batman fan casting video. Don't know when that's coming out, but it's coming out eventually. And then, of course, when the Joker comes out, we'll be doing some DC tier lists. By the way, Joker trailer on Wednesday. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon.